Hey everyone, welcome back. We are tackling a big one today.
Yeah, this one's huge.
The Small Business Administration, the SBA.
That's right.
You guys sent us a ton on this. Like seriously, articles, reports, even some handwritten notes. Clearly you want to get to the bottom of this thing. And you know what?
So do we.
We really dug into this one.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
To help us unpack it all, we've got a real pro. They're kind of a master at breaking down these government programs.
Well, I try.
So let's get right to it. First off, what is the SBA? Where did it even come from?
Well, believe it or not, it's been around for a while. Like, think back to 1953, Eisenhower's presidency.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it wasn't some kind of like emergency response to a crashing economy or something. It actually came from this idea that small businesses were like the heart of America,
Right.
innovation, jobs, all that. And they needed someone like on their side in Washington.
Someone in their corner, a champion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how the SBA was born.
So has it always been this huge agency with tons of power?
Not really. In the beginning, their mission was pretty simple. It was to aid, counsel, assist, and protect small businesses.
Aid, counsel, assist, and protect. That sounds awfully broad. What did that actually look like in action?
Okay, so think of it like the SBA wearing a bunch of different hats. Hat number one, they're like a financial friend, offering access to capital.
So loans for businesses just starting out or maybe trying to expand.
Exactly. Then hat number two, they become this business coach.
Oh, okay.
They offer all these entrepreneurial development programs like training, workshops, that sort of thing.
Right. So it's not just about handing out money. It's about giving entrepreneurs the tools to actually succeed.
You got it. And then hat number three, they're like a guide through this crazy jungle of government contracting,
That makes sense.
which, let's be honest, can be a nightmare for small businesses to navigate.
Absolutely.
And finally, and this is where it gets really interesting, they act as an advocate. So it's like they're the voice of small business in those fancy halls of power.
Wait, so the SBA has a say in how the government regulates businesses? I never knew that.
Oh, yeah. That's the job of their Office of Advocacy. And it's actually a pretty unique and powerful tool. It means they're right there at the table when regulations are being created, and potentially they can really shape the environment for small businesses.
Wow, that is a lot more influence than I realized. So you have this agency created to support small businesses, but then you look at their budget over the years and it's wild.
It really is.
I mean, Reagan tried to completely get rid of it, and then suddenly there are billions pouring in after things like Hurricane Katrina or COVID. What's going on there?
You've hit a nerve there. That kind of unpredictable funding is a huge red flag. Often it means they're just reacting to problems instead of strategically planning for the long haul.
Throwing money at issues after they explode.
Yeah, pretty much. And that makes you wonder, is the SBA set up to succeed, or are they always playing catch up?
Okay, so we're talking serious money here, potentially billions lost to fraud, especially after COVID hit. How does something like that even happen?
Well, you have to remember the context, right? The pandemic put the SBA in a really tough position.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone was scrambling.
Right.
There was this immense pressure to get money out the door as quickly as possible. Businesses were shutting down left and right.
People needed help, like yesterday.
Exactly. And I think that sense of urgency, unfortunately, it sometimes overshadowed the need for, really tight oversight.
So it's like they had to choose between speed and security, and speed won out.
In a way, yeah. And keep in mind, this wasn't just about writing checks. They had to design and launch entirely new programs practically overnight.
Right, like the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL, and the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP.
Exactly, those two. Huge programs,
Right.
massive scale. And the sheer volume of applications, it completely overwhelmed the system. Plus, the rules kept changing.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
Total chaos. It created so much confusion. And you know what happens with confusion?
People who know how to work the system find the loopholes.
Bingo. And unfortunately, there were already some cracks in the foundation, so to speak.
Wait, so the SBA already had weaknesses that made this whole thing worse?
It's like, imagine a house, right? If the foundation's already shaky, then a big storm hits. Well,
You're going to have a bad time.
exactly. And sadly, this wasn't even a new problem.
What do you mean?
Remember we talked about those wild swings in their budget?
Yeah.
Well, after Hurricane Katrina, same thing. Tons of money went out the door for disaster relief.
They
Same
did?
issues popped up. Mismanagement, fraud, the whole 9 yards.
So this wasn't just a COVID problem, it's like a pattern.
Seems like it.
So what do we do? I mean, where do we even go from here with all this?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question, and frankly, I don't know if anyone has a perfect answer.
It's a big one.
It really is. And it's something that everyone's grappling with. Policymakers, watchdog groups, even everyday citizens like you listening right now.
So what are some of the ideas being floated around? Is this even fixable? So where do we go from here? Is there any hope for the SBA?
Well, there are a lot of people pushing for some big changes. They want to see a more focused SBA, one that's more accountable for the money it spends.
Less bureaucracy, more results.
Exactly. So less about just throwing money at every problem and more about making sure every dollar counts.
Okay, so how do we get there? What needs to change specifically?
Well, a lot of folks say the SBA needs to get back to basics, double down on those core functions we talked about earlier. The loans, the training, the help with government contracts, being a voice for small businesses in Washington.
Right, focus on what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and streamline those programs. Make them as effective as possible. And if something isn't working, get rid of it.
No more sacred cows.
Exactly. But just as important, we've got to prevent these issues with fraud and mismanagement from happening again.
Okay, yeah, that feels huge. How do we actually make the SBA more accountable?
Transparency is a big one. They need to be regularly reporting to Congress, showing exactly how they're using taxpayer money.
So no more hiding behind vague reports.
Nope. Clear, detailed reports, easy to understand. And those government watchdogs, like the GAO, they need to have real teeth,
Meaning?
meaning they have the power to really dig deep and hold the SBA accountable when something goes wrong.
Right, no more slaps on the wrist.
Exactly. And then there's the Office of Advocacy. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah, some people want to give them more power. Right.
Exactly. A stronger Office of Advocacy, they could be a real powerhouse for small businesses. Like, instead of reacting to bad regulations after the fact, they could be proactive.
Getting ahead of the game.
Right. Identifying potential problems before they become a problem, and then fighting for policies that actually help small businesses grow.
So what's the bottom line for our listeners? What should they be watching for as this all unfolds?
Well, for starters, keep an eye on how the SBA handles the fallout from these COVID relief programs. Are they actually holding people accountable for the fraud? Are they learning from their mistakes?
That's a big one.
It is. And then watch what happens with those reforms we talked about. Are they actually happening? Are they making a difference? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about the SBA.
It's about the health of small businesses everywhere.
Exactly. And they're the backbone of our economy, of our communities.
It's interesting. We started this deep dive really trying to understand the SBA, right? But the more we dig in, the bigger the questions seem to get.
How so?
I don't know. Can a government agency ever really capture that spirit of entrepreneurship, that drive, that risk-taking?
That's a good question.
Or is there always going to be this kind of fundamental tension between the two? I think that's something worth thinking about. And honestly, it's something we're still wrestling with ourselves. So until next time, keep asking those tough questions, keep digging for answers, and we'll be here to help you make sense of it all